Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and do you want to add remote start to your car? It's a really easy thing to do, and I want to show you how. All right, y'all, so let's talk about this project a little bit before we do it and the reasons why you might want to add this to your car, because there's a lot of reasons you can have remote start on your car, whether it's bad weather or you want to defrost or it's cold or whatever it happens to be. And maybe your car didn't have that option or it simply wasn't available when you bought it. This is a great piece of technology from Bimmertech, and it's something that is not all that hard to install. You're going to need an extra key fob, so make sure that you have that handy before you actually start the project. Now I'm going to walk you through the whole thing. It really only takes a few simple tools and a little bit of time. You just have to be very, very detailed as you do it. This isn't a hard install, it's just a little complicated. So I'm going to walk you through every step. Now, in addition, Bimmertech does have a really good guide on how to do this, but I wanted to supplement it with a video so you can actually see what we're doing as well along the way. But I'm going to have the guide printed out, and I suggest you do too. All right, let's get started. All right, y'all, so one of the very first things you're going to want to do is unplug one or both batteries. Now, it depends on how your car's set up. Most of the time in those Geo ones, they have two batteries. So I'm up here under the hood. This is the passenger side. You've got a cover right here with these little twist locks. You'll want to undo the twist locks, and then this cover will lift. You can actually see the battery back there underneath. So you want to pop these twist locks, lift this cover off, and pull off the negative post on that battery. It should be a 10mm nut on the connection to the negative post, so go ahead and lift that off. And then we're going to go back to the trunk and we'll lift off the post there. Now, really quickly, since I didn't say it, make sure your tailgate is open, your doors are open, your hood's open, all those sort of things before you start unplugging the battery. All right, so go ahead and get your front one done. I'll show you the back. All right, y'all, so here we are in the trunk. Go ahead and lift the cover, and underneath you have your molded carpet. Now you've got two little these little twist locks right here. You can use a screwdriver or even a coin because it's kind of a rounded little connection. Don't chew up the plastic. But you lift them on both sides, or twist them on both sides, and then the carpet will lift enough to expose the battery. Now, same thing, you're going to want to undo the nut right there on the post to just loosen it. You don't have to take it off. And go ahead and pull the ground post off, or pull the connection off the ground post and tuck it down and safe away. The one thing you want to make sure to do is not just kind of pull it off and let it sit here, because sometimes the cable tension will make it swing back, and if it touches the ground post, well, suddenly your car has power. Okay, so go ahead and undo both those batteries, and then we're going to move on to taking off some of the plastics in the passenger wheel well. All right, so now that all your batteries are unplugged, we're going to want to get into this footwell area here on the passenger side. The BDC module we need to do all the work on is back behind this plastic right here. So we're going to want to take off the door trim. Now you can get your fingers underneath it. Try not to crack it as you pop it up. So you're going to want to pop it free of the clips. Now chances are really good that the clips will stay behind, which they did. So in all of them but one, they stayed behind. So we'll use a pair of pliers to pull those out later. So we're gonna pull that out. I'm gonna show you the kick panel here underneath your glove box. There's a couple of little twist locks and it'll drop away. You'll probably have a light that's plugged into it. You wanna unplug it. And then we're gonna wanna pull this cover off. So let me grab my camera and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so as you look here underneath, and they're going to be hard to see until I get this down, but there's a couple of little twist locks right here. You turn them clockwise, and they'll come loose. As you can see, the panel is coming loose. Just pull it out and forward, and it should come off. Now, in this case, there's only one connector here with the light here back in the back, so you'll just want to work that off. It's also on a little post clip right there. But once that's off, you can slide the plastic out and set it aside. Now, with that said, now we're looking at this protective plastic right here. There really are the same sort of typical BMW little pressure, those plastic posts, those trim posts. There's like 1, 2, 3 in place. And you're going to want to get your fingers underneath this and just pry at it, and it should come loose. Now again, as you work on this, just be gentle. There goes one. We'll get the rest as we go here. There it is. Well, and sometimes if they've never been off before, they are really stiff to get off. If you leave a post behind like we did right here, make sure to take that off later and we'll put it back on the plastic piece. Now, this is the outside edge of the BDC module right here. So we're gonna have to move the carpet. We're gonna pull the carpet back as we go. Now, on a lot of these, the carpet is very, very stiff. So there's a couple of ways of coming at this. If you have something really heavy that you can use and just place here to keep the carpet folded back, that's very useful. I've done that before a lot of times. If you have like a hunk of metal or something heavy that you can set here to help hold the carpet back, because constantly having to pull the carpet back and get to the BDC module right here is a bit of a pain. So with that said, looks pretty complicated, huh? It's really not that bad. You see all these plugs? These are going to be the plugs that we're going to get to. And I strongly encourage you that you have the printout of the Bimmertech installation guide, because double check your work. This plug, this wire, I'm going to walk you through it too, but I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to use the guide and do the video at the same time. But one of the things we're going to want to do is, see this plastic cover right here? There's this kind of protective cover that goes over the top of a number of the switches. This is held in, and it's going to take both hands for me to get it off. This is held in by some clips over the top of this BDC module. So pin your carpet back, go ahead and pull off this plastic guard, and then I'm going to walk you through all of these plugs that we're going to start to put the new wiring harness into. All right, so here's where camera angles are going to start to get interesting, and I'm going to do my absolute best to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So now that this cover's off, you can see it's got little fingers that go in on each side here and here, so it lifts up and out. You have a couple of wiring harnesses that are on posts. You can see the little post holes right here that you lift those posts out, and then you can take this and set it aside. Now, one of the very first things we're going to do is we're going to plug in this fuse assembly. This will actually plug in this orientation. All your fuses sitting in the block are sitting like this. They're stuck out like this. This is going to plug in this orientation into the very bottom row, and I'm going to try to do my best to show you right here. Right here in the center, right here, you're going to see a row of fuses. There's two rows. There's the row on the left side, which is the closest to the engine, right? That's going to be the left side. At the very bottom, in this car's case, it has a 15 amp fuse. You want to pull that 15 amp fuse out and install it. It's a little hard to see, but if you look right there, you can see there's a spot for another fuse right there. So take the 15 out, put the 15 in right there, and then put this in its place. So it's going to be standing up, straight up and down, when the rest of the fuses in the block are sideways. Okay, does that make sense? So go ahead. I usually will use like a pair of tweezers or a fuse pull tool to pull the fuse out, transfer it, and plug this in. And then we're going to start installing the rest of these wires. Now, basically what we're going to be doing, and let me touch on it, and I'm going to cover every single one as we go. As you can see, we've got a wire that has a connector already on it. So in all these cases, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting into the correct plug block. And now that we can see them, so you can see the white one here, you see the blue one here. It's typical BMW that's got the horseshoe collar on the top, where you undo, you push the collar back, and then the plug will come out. And I'll show all of this in great detail. But we're going to be pulling out each correct plug block. We're going to be identifying the correct wire, replacing it with the wire out of the wiring harness, and then plug the existing OEM wire into the connection. Okay? It'll make sense as we go, I promise. So go ahead and start with the fuse, replace that, and then we're going to start pulling our wire block. All right, as we look in, you should be able to see now that that fuse is in place. I pulled out the 15, I transferred it to the plug, and then I've installed it. And as you can see, it's in that upright position rather than sideways like the rest. Okay, so when you look across this block, and there's a very good diagram from Bimmertech, we're looking for, well, plug 1 is way over in the corner. 1, 2, 3, so it's 2, 3, 4. So we're looking for this white one right here. Like I said before, there's this horseshoe collar where you just press the little tab on it, and the collar will rock back like that, and then the plug comes right out. I know my hand's in the way, but the plug comes right out. Okay, so now with that plug out, you're just going to take a pick tool. You're going to see on either side there's these two little tabs. And you're going to get very good at this by the time you're done with this. And it's a good skill to have working on BMWs, because pulling these wiring harnesses apart is something you need to do from time to time, depending on what upgrades you're doing. But you see the two little locking tabs? You press those outward with a pick, and this white sleeve will come off, because that's all it is. It's a sleeve that's holding the plug in place, and then we can get to the two different halves of the plug, and we'll identify the right pin that we're going to swap out. So go ahead and take the cover off now. So as you can see, I've got the cover off, and then these two halves will just slide apart. We're going to be looking at the black half on this side, and if you look very, very faintly, and I'm not going to be able to catch it on camera, but the pins are actually numbered. So very faintly in the plastic right here, there's a little, it says 19, and at the far end, it says 36. So these are pins 19 through 36 on this side. Now, on the new wiring harness for this very first block, you're going to want to find the little bundle, because they're all in little bundles, the bundle with the orange wire and the orange with black. These are the two that are going to swap into this position. What we're looking for are pins 34 and 33. So 36 is down here at the end, it's the yellow one. 35 is this yellow and black one, and then look, here's 34, 33. The gray wire and the black wire. So these are the ones we're going to be swapping out. Now, if you notice, and I'm going to explain it in great detail here in the first one, and then I'll explain. And then, as you get good at this in the later blocks, I'll hustle through it. But if you look at this, you can see where the pin connectors are, and there's a little locking tab, and it's going to be difficult to show on camera. But if you look even at the existing pins that we're going to swap in, you can see that there's a little flange metal locking tab right there. So very carefully, very, very carefully. So we're going to start with the gray wire first, and it's going to take a little bit of practice to get this, but you'll get good at it. I like an angled pick tool, and I'll very gently reach into this gap right here where you can see the locking tab, and I press on the tab. When you press on that tab, that'll allow the wire to start to back out. So as you look at this, what I'll normally do is I'll get my fingers on it. I'll get my fingers on that one wire very carefully, because you don't want to damage anything. That would be bad. So I'm going to take this one wire, separate it out, and apply a little bit of back pressure on it. So when that tab depresses, the wire, just like that, will slide out. You can feel it give. Be very gentle as you do this. Sometimes in the second little gap right here, it can lock up again, where that tab will try to catch it to keep it from coming out. See, just like that. Pretty straightforward. So now, looking at the guide, the gray wire that we've just pulled out is the orange wire. Now, when you look at this wiring harness, this orange wire has a little bit of silver on it, but its partner here is very clear. It's orange with a black tracer. So this is the orange wire that you need in this wiring harness off the new wiring bundle. So then you take it only goes in one way. The tab is going to be up, in that up position to slide right back, and you're just going to take it, make sure you've got enough space that you can fit it in. You're going to take that, get some space, slot it into place, bang, just like that. So as you can see, now it's locked in because the locking tab is in place. So the gray wire is now free, and you can just kind of pull it free and sit it out like this. Now you're going to want to take out the black wire and do the same thing with the orange and black run, okay? When that's done, we're going to transfer those wires into this harness, and this is how it jumps into the new wiring harness. But go ahead and take the black one out, and then I'll show you this in detail. All right, y'all, so the very next pins you need to replace are on the other side of this same block, so you don't have to go anywhere. You're looking for pins 45 and 49. Now, I've already changed them out because I wanted to show you what it looks like. Now, one thing to keep in mind, there are two different versions of this wiring harness. Now, when you order your harness, you are probably going to have the new harness. I happen to have the old one. So when you look at the guide, so we're on page 17 here of the guide, the colors are wrong when you look at the wiring harness. The colors in the guide are dark blue and dark blue with a black stripe. The wiring harness that has been provided, that I have, is dark blue and light blue. Those don't match. So I want to give you both versions just in case. Now, if your wiring harness matches with a dark blue and dark blue with black stripe, make sure that you match, you know, the pins correctly. So, and in this case, the dark blue, so the yellow with the gray stripe is the light blue. That's pin 45 right here. So the yellow with the gray stripe, which is right here in pin 45. So that is the light blue. Now, the green with the blue stripe, which is up here in pin 49 right here, is the dark blue, as you can see. So when you get when you get those out, and now that those are set into place, here are 2 original OEM wires. Again, you're going to take your new plug, just like you did before, and make sure to match them up correctly. So the light blue is in the center channel. The light blue is the yellow with the gray stripe. So we're going to take the yellow with the gray stripe, we're going to put it into the center channel, and lock it into place. Make sure that it locks in nicely and there's a good click. You know that you have a good connection there, okay? The dark blue is the green with the blue stripe. We're gonna put that into this outer channel, making sure that it matches the other pin, push it all the way in, and make sure that it has a good locked in connection and lock that plate down. Now, one thing to point out, just in case, this plug can come apart. This end can come out of the plug. So as you fiddle with this, imagine if you had this half out and you didn't realize that you had disconnected it. So whenever I deal with any of these connections, I also press them into place to make sure that they're in and solid. Okay, so if you have the new harness, follow the same the directions with the blue and the black stripe, so on. If you have the old harness like I do, you've got the light blue and the dark blue wires. They're all matched up here really nicely. Okay, so this is everything we need to do in this wiring harness. So you're going to take the plug. If you notice, there's a little bit of groove track here. You're going to want to feed it into the black side of the plug like that, and then they kind of stick together. Take your wiring harness or take your plug, just like this. Go ahead and take the shell that you took off. Only really goes in one way. There's only one way to get it in. Snap, and you can hear it snap right back into place, just like that. So now you've got a good clean install. Your wires aren't tangled, nothing's a mess. You take your plug with the horseshoe collar, fit it right back up into the slot and lock the collar down. You should probably hear a click. You can see the plug is in really, really solid. Okay, so good stuff. Now, so the next 2 wires we're going to talk about in the wiring harness, again, if you have the old wiring harness, we've got 2 different colors, right? We'll talk about this in a second, but we're only one of these plugs, one of these is going to go to one block, another one's going to go to another block. So let's go ahead and pull that out. So what we're actually looking at this point is we're going to be looking at number 7, plug 7, which is the big inner black plug right here. Okay, so go ahead and get this plug out, pull the shell off, and then I'll show you which pin you need to change. All right, so I've got this plug out and the cover off, as you can see, and we're going for pin 22. So this is going to be in this car, the blue side of this plug. You can see very faintly, you can see the numbers. So as we count across, 1920s on this side, 21, 22 on this side of this blue side of the plug, and you can see pin 22 is this blue wire right here. So that matches. So we're looking for the OEM blue wire, which is right here, and we're going to do the same thing to back it out as we've done on all the others. Now, here's where, again, the differences in the old wiring harness that I have and the new wiring harness, and I'm going to give you directions the same way. The new wiring harness has a gray wire. This has a yellow wire. Same thing, just different color wire. So you're going to pull out pin 22 on plug 7 here, 22, back it out, and put the yellow or gray, depending on your wiring harness, in place. Okay? And then we're going to move on to plug 8 here in just a second. So swap this one out, and then you might as well take that blue wire and match it to the yellow wire in this new jumper plug. Okay, so go ahead and swap all those out, put the plug back together, put the shell back on, and put this back into place. And we're going to move on to plug 8 here in just a second. So the plug for this connector, this jump plug where we're adding this in, is a little bit of a different design, so I want to make sure to point it out than the previous one that you did. So go ahead and pull this connector out. It comes all plugged in when you get it. Make sure that you note which side equals what, right? That it's in everything in the correct orientation. But this side of the plug, actually, this big locking tab on it actually is a cover. So you actually want to slide it sideways to take the locking tab and the cover off, because you won't be able to put in the new wire if you don't slide that cover off. It'll only go in about halfway. So when you slide this into this connection, it won't lock into place like it is right there. Now make sure that you match it up, that you're still in the correct orientation, right? So blue is going to yellow or gray. So because you might get frustrated. You might be like, why isn't this wire going into this little connector? Well, you got to slide that cover off. So you can take the cover and just set it aside for the moment, because you're going to have to put in the next wire out of block 8 here in just a second. Okay, but block 7 is done. So you take it, like I said, we've added the yellow or gray wire in. We've put the cover back on. So then at that point, and make sure you're not tangling your wires. You're starting to get, with your wiring harness here, make sure you're not crossing wires and having any problems where things are running out of room, okay? So go ahead and take plug 7, put it right back into the block, lock that locking collar down, and then it's good to go. Go ahead and keep the purple line here close, because you're gonna be putting that in just a second. So go ahead and pull plug 9 out right here, or excuse me, plug 8 right here, which is the one right next door. Same thing, you depress the little tab, get the locking collar up, and then the plug will come out. So let me slide the cover off and I'll show you what pin for your purple line. All right, so plug 8 is out. I've got the shell off. The wire that you're looking for is pin 30. It's on the black side of this, but always count to make sure. Don't assume. So it is the purple with the blue tracer. So that's this wire right here that I'm highlighting. It's really easy to count down the back of this black plug. You can see the really big ones at this end, the small ones at this end. The small is 34. So 34, 33, 32, 31, 30. That's that purple line right here with the blue tracer. Okay, so same thing. Back this plug out and put in the purple wire from the new wiring harness. Do the same thing. Put the wiring harness purple in here, put the OEM into the new plug, click it all together, put the shell back on plug 8, and go ahead and plug it back into place. All right, so once you have the shell back on and you have plug 8 back in place, make sure to put the OEM purple wire into the correct position here on your new plug. I don't have the cover on yet, but make sure that they're in and solid, and make sure that they're lined up properly. So the blue, OEM blue, goes to yellow or gray. Purple goes to purple, okay? So then you can take this cover that we've slid into place, and you can just slide it right back in place, back on top of this plug, and then, as I'm putting it in the wrong direction, so it just slides back on just like that, and then it plugs back into your main plug right here. So go ahead and get that all plugged back in together, and then we're going to move on. We should have really one left. It's a ground wire. All right, a little bit hard to show with the carpet in the way, but our last block right here is plug 12, which is this lower white plug on the other side of the fuses, right, where you put that fuse in. So same thing, go ahead and back this plug out, take it out, and we're gonna swap out one wire for a ground wire. Okay, so I have that plug out, I have the cover off. The pin we're looking for is 16, which in this case is on the blue side, off by itself, very right here on the end, and it is a yellow wire with blue tracer, or blue stripe. So it should be pin 16 right here. So swap it out with your brown ground, your one remaining wire run here. So swap it out with the brown and swap the yellow in here into the new plug. Make sure that you get it on the correct side of this plug. Don't put it in on the empty side. Now, one thing you might want to do, getting this plug out can be really tight if your fuse, remember step 1, the very first thing we did was put this fuse in place. This sitting in place can kind of be in the way. So if it is in the way, don't hesitate to take it out. Go ahead and take this out, just don't forget to plug it back in. Okay, so I took mine out to make sure that I can get to it. So I'm gonna swap that out, I'll put this block back in, and then as far as the rest of the wiring, there's only one step left to do, and it's gonna be a ground wire down here, down low, and I'll show you that in just a second. All right, so the very last thing you have to connect out of this wiring harness is this ground spade right here. Now the guide says you can use a bolt here up above. I don't like that as much, especially when if you look right there, there's an existing ground wire right there. So that's a 10mm nut. Go ahead and just back the nut a little bit, back off it a little bit, put this spade in between the nut and the bolt, and go ahead and tighten it back down. So at that point, you can potentially go ahead and take the main box and you can plug it into the wiring harness. I've also plugged in the small cable that's going to go to the remote, which we're going to set up next. Now this cable has self-evident ends. There's a number of places where you can potentially plug it in on this box, but there's only one place. So it's the 8-pin plug on one side, and it's the 10-pin plug that's going to go into the box that has your key fob, your spare key fob, which is this box right here, which doesn't have the key fob in it yet. So let's go take this apart. Let's go take our spare key fob. I'll show you how to install it into this box, and we're going to come back and plug it all in. All right, so this is the box where you're going to put in your key fob. The key fob's going to be in here. Now, you're not going to need the blade anymore, so you can always take that off and set that aside. You're going to need to pull the cover on your key fob because we're going to be pulling the battery out because we're not going to keep this temporary battery in here, right? What we're going to be doing is replacing it with a new permanent battery. So, as you can see your different battery sizes. Big one? Nope. Small one? Yes. So you have a ribbon cable that is going to be attached. So you can see one side is blue, one side has the contacts. The contacts go down, so blue side up. So you're going to want to fit this ribbon cable into place. Now you can do it on the battery side or the circuit board side first, it doesn't matter which, and then just lock down that little lever right there, which will help keep the cable in place. There's a matching one on the battery side, as you can see hopefully a little bit more closely right there. So what you're going to want to do is go ahead and pull the battery out, and then you're just going to set this in place with the new battery in place of the old one and attach the ribbon cable. Okay. Then at that point you can go ahead and you can take like a little bit of electrical tape or something similar to secure the key fob to the board itself. And it's a little awkward right now because obviously I haven't done it yet. But you can go ahead and secure this down into place like that and then put it back together, and then you can put the cover back on with these little teeny tiny Phillips screws. Okay, so go ahead and get all of this assembled, and then we're going to go plug it into the car, and we're really close to testing. All right, y'all, here we are back at the car. So go ahead and plug your key fob box into the main controller. Have your main controller plugged into the wiring harness. Make sure that all of the rest of your wiring harness is good to go and everything's plugged in as it should be. We'll tuck all of this away in a minute, and I'll talk about that in just a sec. But now is a great time to test. Now, before you test, if you've taken the ground post off your front battery, put that back on. Put your back post back on your battery. And now, the other secret about this is make sure that your car is all locked up. Okay, so close everything, put your batteries back, so put the batteries back on, close everything up, and then go ahead and make sure to lock your car. Okay, so car is locked, and then it is a triple press. And it starts. So works great. Everything is good to go. So go ahead and turn your car back off. We're going to put the plastics back on. I'll show you that, but we also need to hide that box. Now, it's going to be almost impossible to show, but I like hiding both of these boxes. So if you reach up back behind and you reach up back behind the plastics here, where you see my hand, there's enough space to hide this box. So what I'll usually do is I'll use a little bit of 3M adhesive. I'll put a couple of tracks on the box and a big track here, and I will tuck them back up and behind. So once those are up and secure, I'll secure my wiring harness as well as neatly as I can. I don't do it yet to make sure that I've got enough cable length that I can tuck up and hide it away. And then with the rest, I just bundle up. You can use a zip tie or a twist tie that like it came with. You can get that all nice and secure, and then you can put all the rest back together. Your plastics are just going in reverse order. Don't forget that plastic guard that goes over the top of this module. Slide that back into place to compress all of these wires down. Make sure you don't pinch anything or anything along the way. And then once that's on, you put this kick plate plastic on. I still have a post left right here, as you can see. So I'm going to make sure to take that out and put it back in the plastic. So when I put it back into place, put that on, put this top kick plate back on, put your side panel on. Again, if you got these plastic rivets left behind, use a pair of pliers, pull them out, put them back in. This piece just smacks back into place. You just line it up into the holes and just smack it back into place. So with all of that said, go ahead and get cleaned up, put everything away, and you're pretty much done. All right, y'all, so one last double check, but everything's put back together. So again, kick plate's on, this back panel's on. There's a couple of loops on the back of this plastic. You want to loop them onto these little plastic fingers that come out and then swing it up into place. Quarter turn those little locking knobs on either side. This side has the little fingers on either end that goes into the plastics, and then just bang it back down into place just like that. You're good to go. Car's all put back together. Go ahead and put your tools away. Well done. All right, all done. Go ahead and wrap up and put your tools away. And you can tell this is not a hard project. It's just kind of detailed, and it's something you can easily do on your own with a few simple tools and a little bit of time and some patience. So make sure to follow along with the guide and along with this video, and you should be absolutely successful. And this is some cool technology you can easily add to your car. Thank you to Bimmertech for making such a fantastic product that can really upgrade so many different cars. It's pretty darn cool. I appreciate you watching, and please make sure to click like and subscribe. It makes a huge difference to my channel, and I would really appreciate it. Also, I have a ton of projects coming that I cannot wait to show you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on my next video.